All right, welcome to our second unit, Chapter 12, Section 2, What Toddlers Learn. After studying this lesson, you should be able to identify the major areas of concept learning for toddlers and describe one skill a toddler might learn in each area. Give examples of two common types of articulation errors heard in toddler speech. Identify two factors that influence vocabulary development, as well as explain the sequence of grammar development in toddlers, describe three factors affecting language development of toddlers, and identify intellectual development milestones that toddlers might achieve. Concepts infants learn during infancy, such as object permanence, spatial relationships, cause and effect, all mature and become more sophisticated during the toddlerhood. It will be many more years before these concepts are fully mature. The major areas of concept learning for toddler include the following: distinguishing attributes or properties of objects, noting cause and effect, using spatial relationships, solving problems, understanding quantity, and using symbols. Okay, so for distinguishing attributes of objects, noticing the type attributes of objects such as their shape, size, color, texture is just the beginning for toddlers. Usually, the first properties they notice are major color and size differences in objects. Attributes become more important for creating mental images, especially as thought processes begin to form in older toddlers. For example, a toddler might often refer to attributes when talking about objects, such as a red ball or a big dog. Toddlers often know the attributes of new objects based on prior experiences. They then use this knowledge in play. For example, suppose a child has already been exposed to the loud noise made by hitting metal objects and the lack of noise made by dropping soft objects. He or she will use this knowledge when given new objects for play. The child might immediately bang metal pans together, but would not bang two balls of yarn together. This is a very valuable thinking skill. Toddlers also begin to perceive differences in attributes. Noting these differences is a thinking skill because it requires comparison. This skill is needed to identify objects. For example, toddlers can distinguish between similar animals, such as ducks and geese, and between closely related colors, such as red and pink. Toddlers mentally compare differences before they know the terms for objects. Although toddlers sometimes use the wrong word for an attribute, they do note the differences among the objects. Seeing differences enables toddlers to sort information by attributes and to later classify objects. For cause and effect, young toddlers learn by throwing, rolling, shaking, or moving objects. They learn that round objects roll and flat objects slide. They also learn that hard objects will make a loud noise when it's hit together, but soft objects will not. For the most part, young toddlers are learning physical knowledge concepts rather than more advanced logical thinking skill of cause and effect. Older toddlers, however, test their actions by repeating or varying them. For example, they may throw objects in different ways and note the paths that the objects take. They hear the noise when the object lands and see what happens to the object upon landing. Does it roll? Does it break? They can use different objects to hit pots and pans. While doing this, they may note different sounds caused by where the pan is hit. The type of object used to hit the pan, or the strength of the hit. Once older toddlers see the relationship between an action and the observable results, then they are noting cause and effect. Toddlers are also learning how to use spatial relationships. They learn about spatial relationships as they play. For example, toddlers learn how objects fit together as they nest containers and fit pieces into a puzzle board or shapes into a shape sorter. Toddlers also learn about spatial relationships as they move through spaces. For example, toddlers may crawl under or jump over objects in a simple obstacle course. To test toddlers' abilities to mentally map space, an experimenter set up a small room with one piece of furniture on each wall. A toddler was brought into the room and given commands to walk to different pieces of furniture. Once the toddler was familiar with the setup, the toddler was taken out of the room. The furniture was rotated 90 degrees, but kept in the same angular relationships. The toddler was then blindfolded and brought back into the room. Commands were once again given. Toddlers who were tested remembered the relationship of each piece of furniture to another. They had created a mental spatial map, which enabled them to walk through the room with ease. For problem solving, toddlers solve their problems the best way they know how, which is by trial and error or by thinking through what solution will work. To problem solve, toddlers combine actions and even use objects as tools to reach a goal. Because their understanding of cause and effect is kind of limited, they do not think about the consequences of their actions. For example, to reach a piece of fruit on the kitchen table, a toddler may pull on the tablecloth until the fruit falls, even though other objects on the table will fall as well. They also work on understanding quantity. By the toddler years, number words are a major part of language. Toddlers pick up on these words and use them, but usually incorrectly. For example, 2 may mean any quantity that's greater than 1. Older toddlers often count by memory, but many toddlers do not understand the quantity associated with each number. Quantity concepts are much more difficult to grasp than noting the attributes of objects. Color, for example, is a naturally occurring trait in a specific object. Numbers, however, are not a naturally occurring trait in an object. The number 2 only exists when combining a second object with a previous one. The combining of numbers is an intellectual act. What happens when a toddler counts 2 objects in reverse order? The object called 2 is now the object called 1, and vice versa. Lastly, they use symbols. Through pretend play, toddlers begin to use symbols. For infants and very young toddlers, a doll is an object. The doll is shaken, sucked on, thrown, dropped, and carried by its arm or leg or even by its hair. With the beginning of pretend play, however, they think of the doll as a baby that needs to be fed, rocked, and put to bed, and never treated as an object. Pretend play that begins in the toddler years is usually done alone. Besides using objects in pretense and seeing pictures in books and drawings as symbols and not the real things, toddlers also begin to understand the complex system of letters, words, and numbers as symbols. These symbols are used as labels for people, objects, and ideas. Unlike other symbol systems, words do not sound or look like the people or objects they represent. Thus, language is the most abstract symbol system that is used by toddlers. To learn language, children use 2 thinking skills. First, they must associate the word with the person or object to see which it refers. Second, children must recall the word and its meaning when they hear the word or want to say it. Language requires higher-level thinking skills. So as a review, what we just talked about, why is language an abstract symbol system? Think about that. For communicating, spoken language develops at a faster rate between 1 and 3 years of age than at any other time in a person's life. Learning to talk takes time and effort because speaking involves learning the sounds and meanings of words. Articulation is a person's ability to pronounce words that can be understood by others. If a child is going to be bilingual or fluent in 2 languages, infancy is the best time to learn the sounds of letters and syllables of both languages. Learning to control the tongue, the lip muscles, and vocal cords to articulate the words of any language, however, takes some practice. Toddlers do not pronounce sounds accurately each time. In fact, most have some problems making all the sounds in their spoken language. Toddlers who cannot make one sound often substitute it for another sound. For example, they may use the duh sound for a th sound, such as dat for that. Sometimes children can articulate the correct sound in one place in a word, but not in another. For example, a toddler may pronounce the M sound correctly at the beginning of a word, like milk. The same toddler may have trouble, however, making the M sound in the middle of the word, like hammer, or at the end of a word, like broom. Toddlers may also change the sound order of a word, such as saying per slip to mean slipper. They may even change an entire word, such as saying book to mean bird. Sometimes toddlers will drop a sound they cannot pronounce. For example, they may say seepy instead of sleepy. Few children articulate sounds correctly from the beginning, but tend to correct themselves over time. Pronouncing words correctly, even if the toddler's way of saying the word sounds cute, sets a good example for children to follow. In time, children will learn from listening. Having children repeat a word again and again is not a recommended way to correct pronunciation because it may cause the child to stress. Learning the meanings of words is difficult. To do so, children must link certain features with a name. Older toddlers learn meanings better if parents show or point as to what is being talked about or taught. Still, learning meaning is difficult because many objects with different names share some common features. For example, both dogs and ponies have 4 legs and run outside. Sometimes children confuse the meaning of words they hear. They may use a wrong name for an object, such as call a cow moo or a stove hot. Without meanings attached to spoken sounds, there would be no language. These meanings give children 2 new tools, communication and a new way to think. Communication is the skill needed to understand others and to be understood by them. Already, toddlers can understand many words and sentences. When they begin to talk, they want to be understood. Toddlers often use their communication for 3 reasons. All children communicate to achieve goals. Some toddlers primarily communicate to learn names that refer to people, places, and objects, or nouns, explain actions, verbs, and describe nouns and verbs, or adjectives and adverbs, to talk about the world. These toddler speech is referred to as referential. On the other hand, other toddlers primarily communicate with affective words like hug, kiss, to create social bonds with others. These toddlers' speech is referred to as expressive. Although all toddlers use both types of vocab, most toddlers tend to either use more referential or expressive words in their spoken vocabulary. And the reasons that toddlers communicate, the three reasons, are to achieve a goal, like I want cookie, to identify an object, like big, to create a bond with another person, like kiss, or hurt, or mommy, which means like, mommy, where are you? I want you. Language is a part of the thinking process. In other words, people learn to think in words. As children learn to talk, words go with actions. For example, toddlers will learn to say goodbye while waving. Later, children talk aloud to themselves as they play or lie in bed. They then often whisper words. Finally, they can just think with words, but without saying them out loud. As children learn language, they develop both vocab and grammar. They attach meanings to words and to the order of words. This process, however, is gradual. Most children's vocabulary grows slowly until they are 18 to 24 months of age. The fastest growth occurs around 30 months. Toddlers may vary in the number of words their vocabulary includes at different ages. Variances in vocabulary occur for the following reasons. Differences in environmental influences. How many words a child understands or speaks is related to the quality of interactions the toddler has with parents and caregivers. Parents who are talkative and use higher levels of vocab and sentence structure are providing quality learning experiences for their toddlers. Studies show that by 20 months of age, toddlers of talkative caregivers know more words than toddlers of less talkative caregivers. By 24 months, the gap doubles in favor of toddlers with talkative caregivers. Bilingualism. Bilingual toddlers divide their vocab evenly across two languages. For each language, their vocabulary is about half as large as the monolingual people or speakers of one language. This difference disappears by the preschool years and is not considered a developmental delay. Word usage. Vocabulary count can also depend on whether all spoken words are counted or only those used correctly are counted as part of the vocab. And then frequency of word uses. Toddlers may use words for a while, drop them, and pick them up again months later. The size of the vocabulary is easier to measure in children 3 years of age and older than in younger children. Vocabulary by 3 years has a major impact on school achievement. Toddlers use words that represent the actions they see and the people and objects they know. Thus, toddlers learn different types of words in a certain order. First words are usually nouns and simple action words, or action verbs. Nouns may include words like mama, dada, kitty. Action words may include run or fly. Next, they learn descriptive words, such as adjectives and adverbs, such as big, hot, pretty, loud, quickly, slowly. Young children quickly learn words for human interactions, such as hi and bye, and words for love and affection too, such as hug. Cultural differences also affect the words children learn. Toddlers learn the words from their parents' career area and interests or hobbies. Toddlers from individual-oriented cultures tend to have vocabularies with more referential rather than expressive words. On the other hand, toddlers raised in group-oriented cultures have vocabularies with more expressive than referential words. Referential means refers to something. Expressive means like hug, kiss. Grammar is the study of word usage and order in a given language. Each language has grammar rules. Children begin to learn these rules during toddlerhood. This learning process begins with single-word sentences and often progresses to simple sentences of a few words during the toddler years. Within 6 months of saying their first words, toddlers usually begin to put words together. Combining words is an advanced skill because word order affects the meanings of sentences. By listening to adults and having good books read to them, toddlers learn basic rules for the language they hear. They then apply these rules to their own phrases and sentences. If children are going to be bilingual, toddlerhood is the best time for learning the grammar of both languages. Grammar knowledge develops in stages. First, toddlers learn single-word sentences. From 12 to 18 months, they use sentences of one word. This single word is often used by the toddler to mean different ideas at different times. For example, a child may say bye-bye to both identify a moving object like a car and to make a request like let's go. To understand these meanings, the caregiver has to note how the child says the word, what gestures they use, and what is happening at the time. After 19 months, many children begin combining 2 or more words to form multi-word sentences. At the early stage of combining words, they use only the most necessary words. By 24 to 30 months, they begin using 3 or more words in their sentences. When the child begins to use multi-word sentences, the added words fill in the gaps of four more simple sentences. For example, gone milk becomes milk is gone. By the time the child uses 3-word sentences, word order is often used correctly. The child may say bird is flying instead of fly bird. The rate at which toddlers learn to talk can vary by several months. Many adults worry about a slow talker only to see the toddler become a nonstop talker a few months later. These toddlers are hearing sounds and learning meanings all along. When they begin to talk, they progress quickly. The number of factors can affect language development. Learning to talk depends on the following factors. Hearing. A child must hear human speech clearly to learn to talk without special training. Even ear infections can delay speech in toddlers. Interests. Some active toddlers are more interested in motor skills than in talking. Within a few months, they often catch up to earlier talkers. Intellectual abilities. Because language is closely related to thinking, a child with an intellectual disability is usually slower to talk. On the other hand, the ability to talk early does not mean a child has above average intellectual abilities. Children of average and even below average intellectual abilities may talk at a young age simply by repeating what they hear. Gender. For the first year of life, girls tend to excel in verbal skills more than boys. Researchers do not know whether this is due to heredity or the environment. For example, adults may talk more often to girls than boys. Need for speech. Some children get what they need without saying anything. For example, if a toddler receives milk by pointing or holding a cup or crying, there's no need for the child to learn to say, I want milk. Stimulating environment. Just as adults have more to say when they have new experiences, so do toddlers. Bilingualism. Bilingual toddlers spread their learning of language across 2 languages. Unless other factors are involved, they typically appear delayed, but they are not. And then autism, which is a developmental disorder, also affects language. Language delays or losses are often early signs of autism. And we will discuss autism more later. In some cases, the rate of language development may lag far behind the norms. In these situations, children will need professional help. Each child needs the best opportunity to develop language because language is essential to healthy intellectual and social emotional development. All right, so I want you to think about the question. Your nephew is 20 months old and rarely speaks. His 2 older sisters take care of him because his parents work days and evenings. What factors might be affecting your nephew's language development? I want you guys to think about that question. As toddlers explore and learn, they continue to achieve intellectual milestones. Pinpointing when they learn a certain concept, however, becomes more difficult as the age of reaching milestones begins to vary among children. Because the exact timing of achievement varies, intellectual developmental milestones in toddlerhood are grouped by month. Being aware of these developmental tasks and age groups can help parents and caregivers create a stimulating environment for toddlers to help meet their intellectual needs. All right, guys, thank you for listening. That's the end.